Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. Today we are talking Starfield. First of all, just wanted to say, actually, I have a couple people starting to follow me now, so that's really cool, guys. If one of you that hit that subscribe button is listening to this, I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate you and looking forward to having lots of fun Starfield conversations with you. So thank you for the support. Really cool, guys. Didn't have to do that, but I very much appreciate it. So, getting into today's topic, and this one comes from no other than Reddit. You know, I'm part of that community. I like to talk to things that are going on there. I like to comment myself at times, but I also just love to speak to it on these videos. Today's topic of choice: what would a Starfield 2 look like? Hypothetically, if for some reason it got a green light, what would Starfield 2 look like in your opinion? He kind of goes on to ask some more questions, but generally, I'm going to start here because I think this is important. I don't know if there'll ever be a Starfield 2, first and foremost. And I don't know if there ever needs to be a Starfield 2 because I think Starfield was built to be a platform for expansion. Um, if you play a lot of Starfield, you probably get this by now that there's 1,000 planets in the Starfield universe. And Creations has already shown us that you can go and you can fill these planets with content. And the creation engine itself allows Bethesda as well as creation developers to essentially build new POIs, new characters, new story arcs, new quests. So, like, there's no real reason to build a Starfield 2 rather than just continuing to build upon this universe. Like, how cool would it be if the modding community in Bethesda over the next 10 years, and Bethesda even talked about this, they talked about this 10-year plan. What if over the next 10 years, Bethesda and its creators fill that 1,000 planet space with just tons of other new Atlantises and neons? So don't beat me up on neon. I know neon's a loading screen, but whatever. The point being, how cool would that be if they just filled it in? And, you know, to the point where maybe you get on planets and maybe they can expand the tile system. That'd be cool too. The tile system, for anyone who doesn't know what I'm referring to, you land on the planet and you're kind of in one tile of the planet, and it has like randomly generated POIs in that tile. And once in a while, you have a new city like Aquila, Neon, New Atlantis, you know, something of that nature that's surrounded by a couple random POIs outside of that. It's basically like your map, like you'd have in Fallout or Skyrim, but a little smaller. What if we could make those tiles bigger to where you could suddenly have Fallout 4 tile maps when you land on a planet too, at big tiles in certain areas? And that was the thing with Shattered Space, that you were in one centralized location on a planet basically the whole time with a bunch of curated locations rather than random POIs. And you could still go to the other parts of the planet. And if you did, you could get the random POI, random generated tiles for exploration and looting and things like that. But you didn't have to. You could just stay in that one section. So, like, think of, like, you know, 1,000 different planets, each with like a Fallout 4 sized map that is curated by Bethesda or creators themselves. Like, how cool would that be? And I want you to really like let that sink in because it really gets to the point of, I don't want a Starfield 2 anytime soon, if ever. What I want really filled in Starfield 1. You know, at the end of the day, I think that would be super stellar and super cool. So let's look at a couple comments here and see what people are saying about this. One commenter said maybe 30 years later. I agree. Yeah, maybe 30 years later. First of all, I think it would take 30 years to get to the next Starfield iteration anyway, because if we're being realistic, Skyrim was made in 2011 and we're in 2025, and I'm probably not going to get another Elder Scrolls until like 2027, 2028, 2029, 2030, something like that. Um, so we're talking like 20 years between games, basically. 15, whatever. You get the point. Fallout 4. Fallout 4 was made in 2014. It's 2025. It's been 11 years already. I think they'll focus on Elder Scrolls 6 first. I think they should, by the way. And so we're probably looking like at least 2030. Let's say Elder Scrolls comes out in 2027. I think that's what they should aim for. Then we're talking like the Bethesda team gets over and starts focusing on, Fallout, the next Fallout. After that, maybe, if we're lucky, 2030, 2031, which means Starfield, you're talking, at least 2035, if it was even to happen. And like I said, I don't know if it matters if it happens, if we can just continue to support and build on this new one. One thing that's happened in gaming too, it's really interesting, and I'd love to hear you guys' opinion on this, but one thing that's happened in gaming is the advancements haven't been as crazy. So, like, I grew up in the 90s. I was born in the late 80s, grew up in the 90s, and 90s kid. And it's for me, I went from like Super Nintendo to Nintendo 64. It was like the craziest gap ever. And then we went from like the PlayStation Nintendo 64 era to the Xbox PlayStation 2 era, and the leaps were just crazy. And then you go from like Xbox to Xbox 360, and like there's still pretty substantial leaps, right? You go from Xbox 360 to Xbox One, and Xbox One to the Series X, and it's like things just kind of diminish and return to some degree, where it's not as big of a leap forward as it once was, even though if it statistically on paper says it is. It's kind of like when you went from standard definition on the TV to, HD, to then 4K, to then 8K. It's the same with like frames when you go from 30 to 60 to 120 to 240. Um, this is probably an unpopular opinion, but in my opinion, it doesn't make as big of a difference. Like, I don't think 4K to HD is as big of a deal as SD to HD was. You have to get close to the screen to tell the difference. I don't think 30 to 60 frames compared to like 60 to 240 or 60 to 120, let's say, is as big of a difference. I know that's unpopular, but shit, my gaming PC runs 320 frames on a lot of games I'm playing right now, and I turn it back down to 60. I can barely tell the difference anyway. It just doesn't. It's diminishing return at the end of the day, and it's kind of the same when you come out with a new game. Would I rather see a Starfield that's slightly more polished when it's already an incredibly polished game with beautiful graphics as is, or would I rather see a Starfield that's full of content? I'd rather see a Starfield full of content. I used to be a big Destiny player, and that was my biggest problem in Destiny 2. The same kind of thing as like Destiny 2, we lost a ton of the content and went back to a vanilla feeling game after years and years of Destiny are being improved upon. And it just wasn't worth it. Like, it was slightly better. Yeah, it ran at 60 frames a second instead of 30. It was a little bit crisper. It was more next gen. But the first one was just as fun, looked pretty much just as good, and it had a lot more content. So I take content all day long. Let's check out a couple more comments here. So I don't want this one to go crazy long, but having fun. Hope you guys are having fun as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. One commenter said, I don't think a Starfield 2 would work as a Bethesda game. I think that after getting I think that after giving us the whole damn galaxy as a setting, we need to do a story focused game for the second game. And Obsidian is better for that kind of thing than Bethesda. IMO. Um, Man, I get that a lot. I get the like Obsidian's better storytellers than Bethesda narrative more than I'd like to hear it, to be honest. Um, Obsidian tells a good story. I'll give them that. I would agree that I would love to see Obsidian's writing team join forces since they're all under the Microsoft umbrella anyway, and have Obsidian add Quest to the Starfield platform. That's what I'm gonna keep calling it for the sake of this argument. Let's call it the Starfield platform. It'd be really cool to get Obsidian in there and get some Outer World style storylines and narratives and things like that within Starfield if they could ever recruit Obsidian for that kind of thing. That'd be sweet. Maybe they have like an Obsidian created DLC within Starfield. Oh, I would totally pay for that. But to act like Obsidian is like superior than to Bethesda, some of that is just this hate for Bethesda right now and this fanboy bullshit. And It's like Outer Worlds was universally praised and Starfield is like hated by so many people. And it's just kind of ridiculous if we're being honest. Like Outer Worlds is nowhere near as good as Starfield. Outer Worlds is a fun 30 hours in a linear type environment with some choice in some RPG elements, in my opinion. I loved Outer Worlds. I can't wait for Outer Worlds 2. I'll probably do some Outer Worlds 2 stuff on this channel, by the way. But comparing Starfield to Outer Worlds is just ridiculous. And yes, you're right, one's AAA, one had way more resources, one had more time. Okay, fine. We can make all the excuses you want. You know, if you're in a bench pressing competition, you could sit there and go, "This guy's on steroids. He works out all the time." Whatever. It doesn't change the fact that the guy's lifted more than you. It doesn't change the fact that Starfield is a superior game to Outer Worlds. And so I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like I love them both, but it's kind of ridiculous, in my opinion, to compare the two companies and act like one is superior to the other one. I think Obsidian though does do some great job writing. I think they're great with the character development piece of things, and I would love to see Obsidian and Bethesda team up for some future endeavors. That'd be super super cool. Microsoft, make that happen. Somebody said Obsidian is better at narrative, but Avowed isn't much better than Starfield, to be honest. Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. That kind of supports my point. That's one to throw that one in there. This one said, another commenter said, Bethesda has established a multiversal setting. Not only can they jump around in the timeline to present different events, they could use parallel realities to mix up events and locations we've already seen to keep things fresh. Even without that, Starfield only features a small snippet of the galaxy. They could pretty easily expand to new worlds and fresh settlements. Yeah, I mean, one thing, let's jump into like what if for a second for the sake of it. I think you guys got my point on the Starfield platform. But if we're talking a Starfield 2 for a moment, and I'm entertaining that idea, and the year is 2066, maybe 2077, maybe we're living in the world of cyberpunk, and now the new the new Starfield games coming out from Bethesda. It would be cool to see a Starfield based in the Colony Wars. I think that's one take I would have, and maybe I'll make a whole video on this at some point. Stay tuned for that. If you stayed this long, consider subscribing. Thank you, though, for listening to my rant. It is interesting to me that Starfield set the setting after something that was really exciting and eventful. There was this crazy conflict between the United Colonies and other factions, like the Freestar Collective, and there was these giant wars. There were mechs that were later outlawed. There was just crazy amounts of cool game content type of stuff. Horrible stuff. Wars were bad always, but for gaming perspective, it is kind of fun to have conflict. That's what makes it interesting. So it's very interesting. They tell us this whole story of like all these epic things that happened that we didn't get to experience, and then drop us in after the fact. And so like it would be kind of cool, almost like a prequel if they did another Starfield, and especially once the technology is really, really advanced to make the game just crazy with this whole war with just thousands of spaceships fighting each other and everything else, right? In the year 2027 or 2077, sorry. That'd be super cool. So if there was going to be a Starfield 2, it'd be super cool if it was set in the Colony War, and I totally agree with that comment. I'll do one more. Another commenter says, I think the best thing to do would be develop what was already there more as part of sort of a retcon. Establishing multiple cities on Jameson and other known worlds, with them being where the various nations settled, like a Chinese city, a couple of European ones, an Indian one, and so on. New Atlantis would be nominally neutral capital, like Washington, D.C. is. Similar thing to the Freestar, maybe where cities modeled after real American and Latin American cities, like 1930s Chicago, 70s Las Vegas, stuff like that. Aquila would be expanded on and have mixed Wild West 19th century Washington D.C. feel. Yeah, no, that'd be cool. Like more on what happened to the different nationalities and different cultures and things like that as Earth was inevitably destroyed and people moved into space. We don't really get a lot of that in Starfield, and I think that's a kind of interesting one in itself. Um, uh, one more comment, and then I'll leave it for the day. For one thing, it better not be developed on the Creation 2 engine. Get better science fiction writers, better gameplay mechanics, seamless space travel, and no loading screens. Actual traversal and exploration, better story, characters, character development, gameplay. Hand it off to a developer with a different design philosophy from Bethesda's outdated one. Ooh, okay. Uh, Hot take right out there at the end. I'm like, let's do one more comment and then we'll wrap this thing up. I totally disagree with this comment completely, and I'm just going to put that out there. Um, Absolutely disagree. The creation engine is what makes Bethesda games great. But I hope it sparks some good conversations. I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Guys, if you stuck around this long, Bowser, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate every one of you. Consider subscribing, give me a like, let me know your feedback in the comment section, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Talk soon. Bye.